Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel where I'll be uncovering, discovering, and breaking down all things multifamily real estate. If you're new to the channel, my name is Trevor B. West. I'm a multifamily real estate investor. Over the last 6 or 7 years, I've built my portfolio from 0 units all the way up to 85 units, which we're super excited about. We have 25 under contract. So my future videos will be me uncovering and discovering those deals and bringing that data and that process to you. In this video, we're going to be uncovering and discovering even some more a duplex that I bought when I was living down in North Carolina. I'm in Ohio right now. When I was in North Carolina, this is my second multifamily deal ever. And in my last video, I looked at a 30,000 foot view of what it looked like to purchase the property. Now, in this video, we're going to be diving into the nooks and crannies of the numbers because sometimes the numbers can be overwhelming. Is this a good deal? Is this not a good deal? What are some of the costs that are going to be hidden or that I don't know about when I'm buying this specific property? So in this video, we're going to dive into that from the purchase to the hold and then the refinance and of course the sell, because we just sold this property about 4 to 6 months ago. So we're going to break all that down. So get ready. So let's dive in and talk about the purchase price of this duplex in Fayetteville, North Carolina on a street called Strickland Bridge Road, my second deal ever. And in my last video, talked about the relentlessness and the tenacity that is required when you know that a deal is the right deal and you have either funding that falls through or an inspection report or some type of major obstacle that you have to overcome, especially when you're early in that journey. And I illustrated my discovery of hard money lending, which is the vast majority of how I fund my properties and my acquisitions is through the use of hard money. Everything comes down to price, price, price. We don't want to buy in war zones, but we have to make money when we buy because we buy with that built-in equity. So on this property, the purchase price, we're going to talk about the term sheet first. And really quick, for those of you, again, who aren't familiar with hard money lenders, they are lending institutions that tend to focus on real estate investors for fix and flip loans, BRRRR properties, which is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat, or just doing any type of acquisition where you're not going to go to your standard banking or lending institution like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Chase, Key, Bank of America, you name it. And what I have in my hand is a term sheet. A term sheet is something any lender is going to give you, which outlines the terms of that loan agreement when it comes to purchase price, interest rate, maturity. And maturity means how long is that loan going to last and when are you going to pay it back and how are you going to pay it back, and of course all the legalities that come along with that, and you'll sign all that stuff when you get to the closing table. We bought this property for $88,000 from a wholesaler. A wholesaler is somebody who goes out and finds deals and brings them to investors like myself. They actually had the property under contract to purchase from the seller for $70,000, but they were selling it to me for $88,000, which means they were going to make an $18,000 spread. Now, any investor who knows that they have a good deal in front of them are not going to complain about paying a wholesaler $18,000. They went out, they did the deal, they called, they sent out the mailers, they door knocked in order to get the deal, and it still works for me. I don't care if I got to pay him $50,000 as long as the deal still works for my strategy. That was a little bit of a side note. Jumping back into the term sheet, $88,000 purchase price. When we first went in and put this property under contract with the wholesaler, there was an appraisal that was already done and in place, valuing the property at $135,000. Now, according to my term sheet here, they were willing to give me 65% of the appraised value, which was $135,000. So let's go down the line. We need $88,000 for the purchase price. We need to put $10,140 into the property to ensure that we have a strong value when we go to refinance down the road. So our all-in cost For the property itself, this is not including fees or all the things that come along with closing and title, but the all-in cost for the property itself, $98,140. The appraised value being $135,000. And 65% of that the lender's willing to lend to me to purchase is $87,750, which is just $250 shy of my purchase price. So I, as the investor, need to bring that $250 to meet the purchase price requirements, plus the $10,140 for the renovation costs. And this is because I'm a newer investor. The higher leverage that the bank gives me, say they were to give me 75%, that means that they're going to loan me more money. But because I was new to the game, they were going to lower the loan to value so that I could get in the deal, show that I had the $10,140 to do the renovations, and then we'll refinance out down the line, and we'll talk about those numbers here in a minute. So once we actually close with the $87,750 that the hard money lender has lent me as the investor, I can hold that loan for 6 months. 6 months is a relatively short time frame. Most hard money lenders work on a 6, 9, or 12-month timeline. 12 months is less frequent than 6 or 9 because these types of loans work best for fix and flips that don't take that long, but it works really well for those investors who want to BRRRR multifamily real estate. So I have 6-month timeline. Because it's only $10,000 worth of repairs, that's not going to take that long. So you might be asking, well, what happens if you actually get into the property and you have a foundation issue or you have this other thing and it's going to take more time and maybe more money, but we're just going to focus on time, and you only have 6 months and it's not going to be enough? Well, built into the term sheet, they have a one-time extension. You can extend for up to 3 months, and it will cost you 1% of the total loan amount. So $877.50 it would cost to extend out that loan another 3 months. Now, the big question that we as investors need to pay attention to when it comes to the term sheet is, how much is this loan going to cost me every single month? What's my mortgage payment? Especially when we're buying multifamily properties, because we have multiple units. Do we have multiple renters? Are there people that are in the units, and are they paying, or are they delinquent? Are they in the eviction process? Is there going to be a monthly cost from me as the investor that I'll have to front? And that's what we call holding costs. How much does it cost to hold through that 6-month term? Now, for this specific property, I think we were in and out in about 3 months, but you have to plan to use that full 6 months, and even plan to use the full 9 months with the extension plus the fee that comes along with it. So for this loan specifically, it's a 12% interest-only payment, which is $892.50. Now, of course, going back to this property, the property already had renters in there that were paying. They were well below market. They were paying $600 each, but that brings the total income of the property to $1,200, which more than covers the $892.50 with a little bit of extra that we don't then go out and spend. I know what you're thinking. Hey, happy day, I got an extra $32 or $300. But no, we as intelligent investors have to keep that money in a savings account, in a reserve account, just in case something happens. One of the renters moves out, stops paying, dies. It happens. We hate when it happens, but it happens. We need to plan for the worst case scenario. And in this case, it's $892 plus keeping all the overage in a reserve account for a rainy day. So that was the monthly cost, and we need to have that information up front. because we need to know how much the loan is going to cost us, and if we have enough money to get through the hold process, if we have to raise a couple bucks, and of course, is this still a deal that is worth me buying? We don't want to have a hold cost that is so heavy that it makes the entire process a burden. So we want to make sure that we have that capital in reserves, whether it's our own money. What I love to use is other people's money, but it all has to be factored in up front. Now we're still talking about the purchase. And the next line item here is the loan origination fee, or what's often called points. Any lender is going to have this, whether it's a traditional bank or what we're talking about with the hard money lender. But a point, or a loan origination fee, is 1% of the total loan amount. So if we have a total loan amount, for easy numbers, $100,000, a point or a loan origination fee of 1% would be $1,000. So here, with a loan amount of $87,750, this hard money lender is charging a hefty 3 points on the loan, which totals $2,632.50. That's money that me, as the investor, will need to bring to the closing table and pay to the hard money lender in order to close on the deal. So what other things is the hard money lender going to charge you? I'll tell you, because they spell it out for you right here. Appraisal fee, $750. Flood certificate, $15. Admin fee, $500. Document prep, $475. Credit analysis, $40. And inspection fees, between $100 and $150 per draw request. So whenever, we'll talk about draws here in a minute, once we get into the actual hold phase, but a draw is when you say, hey, I completed these repairs. I want the money back that I spent to complete those repairs, because it's on us as the investor to fund the first leg of the renovation. They're going to charge you because they're going to come out potentially to inspect the property, or you'll have to take pictures and submit those for review. So that was the term sheet. And that's something we as investors need to pay a lot of attention to and study it. Match it up with the property that we're getting ready to purchase. That way we know, are they giving us enough money? Can we afford the holding costs? And can we afford the length of time that they are giving us in order to get the property to the goal line, which is either refinancing or selling? But now we're going to jump into the closing disclosure. So looking at the closing disclosure, we're looking at the borrower section, because I was the borrower and you're probably looking to become a borrower or continue being a borrower. So if you don't already know, a debit and a credit. A debit is money that is leaving you, and a credit is money that is coming to you. So looking at the debit column first, we have $70,000. That was the total amount that the wholesaler had the property under contract for with the seller. Moving down that column, we have that loan origination fee that I was telling you about, and then we have a admin fee and all those other fees that Longhorn or the hard money lender was charging to me as the borrower. Again, we're not going to go over all those details again. Going further down that column, we have all the fees that we need to pay the title company in order to run title, to give us a clean title, make sure that there's no liens or judgments on the property, and that we're going to be receiving a clear and free title, free of encumbrances, if you will. So further down that line, we have more items to include a home insurance premium that I decided to pay for. Sometimes with smaller properties, I will buy a home insurance premium. That way, if the HVAC goes out, the hot water heater goes out, something happens in the house with the mechanicals or the property that I couldn't have foresaw, home insurance will take care of those things, and I can enact that without having to come out of pocket. Again, I was pretty new to the game when I was buying this property, so I didn't have a ton of cash. The cash that I had was the cash that I had to close on this thing. When we get to the final number of this, you'll see when I tell you I had only $500 left in my bank account after I bought this property. So I was betting it all, and the home insurance policy helped ease some of those stressors when it came to money in case something happened at the property. And then further down that debit section, We have the $18,000 assignment fee. That's the money that's paid to the wholesaler for finding the deal. And then that construction loan. I put that money in escrow to show the hard money lender, yes, I have $10,140, giving them the confidence that I'm going to get this deal done. And then the document preparation fee, all these things were paid to the title company. So going back and looking at the credit side, so we have $1,000 that was my initial deposit to the wholesaler that went into escrow saying, yes, I'm serious about buying this deal. And then the loan amount is a credit because that's coming to me so that I can purchase the property, $87,750. And then prorated rents, we were buying at the very end of the month, so there wasn't a whole lot left there. And then the seller paid the county taxes. And then you won't see any more credits all the way down. And yeah, that's pretty much all the money that was coming to me. So the final numbers here, we had $106,972.51. That's money that's leaving me. Now the money that's coming to me is $89,267.67, leaving a total credit or a debit. So leaving a total, and it's actually funny here, they have the credit and the debit swapped because it would have been sick to get 17,000. But no, I needed to bring $17,704.84 to the closing table just to close on the loan. And after that, I had literally no money left because there was a couple things that we still needed to pay for. And that was $500 for a property inspection. We paid $200 to have the property inspected for pests as well. So that was $700 outside of the closing table that was paid during my due diligence phase, making sure that this is a property that I actually want to buy. So that was the purchase phase, which in the confines of this video was the hardest part. Evaluating the deal from the term sheet and what are the final numbers required to actually close and send that deal across the finish line, and now thrusting us into one of my favorite parts, which is the hold phase, the renovation phase. This is where rubber meets the road. Can you get the things done that we just talked about in the prepare and purchase phase? Now, total cost, $10,140. You've heard it before, you're hearing it again. That money was put into an escrow account. And then I had a contractor that I hired to come in and conduct the renovations that you saw on that list. And then from that completed work, we requested an inspection. Inspector came out, snapped some pics of the completed work, said, yep, good to go. But not without us paying a bill first. It was about $110 for us to be able to conduct that inspection, which then released the $10,140 to go back to me so that I could pay the contractor. And that's as simple as the draws go. Now, say this was a little more in-depth of a property. We had $50,000 worth of renovations that we needed to do. So I would take that $10,000, I would fund the first leg of the renovations and then conduct a draw inspection. They would come out and say, yep, you did the stuff. And then they would release that amount of money that I paid the contractor so that I could have enough money to fund the next leg. But it's a very important, because not all hard money lenders work exactly the same. What we need to understand as investors using hard money lending with money that they are giving us to conduct the renovations, we have to fund the first leg of the renovations, whether it's money out of your or my personal bank accounts, or of course, as I always say, other people's money is best. I went and raised $50,000, or I raised the first leg of my renovation so I could conduct it, and I'm going to pay that person 10, 12%, whatever we decide. And we might not always be able to pay them out from the refinance. If your strategy is to sell, you should make sure that the money to pay them back is built into the sales price. But if you refinance and you still have money left in the deal, meaning, let's say you have $90,000 or $100,000 invested into a deal, but when you refinance, they only give you $90,000. So you have $10,000 left. Let's say you borrowed that money from an investor, you're just going to pay them 10 to 12% on that money until you can pay them out. But of course, you need to make sure that the property produces enough cash flow to get into that. But we'll save that for another video, but just always something to keep in mind is paying attention to the numbers is absolutely key. Another thing to consider while here in the hold phase, and it even goes back a little bit to the purchase phase, which is insurance. We do need to have insurance on our properties, even if the property is vacant, not producing income, because when we send in contractors, they're going to be working. They might get hurt. They might slip and fall. So we need to have what's called a builder's risk policy on the property so that the contractors or whoever is operating or moving around on that property looks to the insurance company and not to you, because that would be a very bad day. The builder's risk policy that I had on this specific acquisition was a 6-month premium totaling $868. And that was the hold/renovation phase. That one was pretty light duty compared to some of the other projects that we've done. Thankfully, because as I was greener or newer at my time of purchasing this property 6 years ago, I was grateful to have a fairly easy win of getting this property across the goal line. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about now, which is my absolute favorite part, which is the refinance. This is where we are taking out our hard money lender and we are replacing them with more institutionalized, longer-term debt. Instead of a 6-month maturity, we're moving into a 30-year amortization schedule where we'll be reducing the amount that we are paying to the lender, plus we're reducing the amount of interest. Instead of 12% interest, we're moving to 5.5. So let's jump into this. What I'm looking at and what you're seeing on the screen is what's called a loan estimate. Very similar to a term sheet, probably interchangeable, but again, it's going to outline the terms of the loan. So this lender was willing to give me $92,000 loan, which means I had, according to our first term sheet, $98,140 left in the deal. Or that's what it costs to get into the deal. So that means roughly I'm leaving about $6,000 of my own money left into the deal. I didn't pull it all back out. For me to pull it all back out, I'd need $98,140. That's not a big deal, and it happens often when you are BRRRRing multifamily or even single family properties. To leave $6,000 in a deal means it realistically cost me $6,000 to purchase that property. Again, going down through the term sheet or the loan estimate, $92,000 loan amount, 5.5% interest, much better than the 12% I was paying. And now, while I'm paying the 5.5% interest, my payments are also going to pay down my principal of the actual property. So they estimated for me that I'd be paying $522.37 for principal and interest. Now, we can't forget about taxes and insurance, which would be, they were estimating $164 total for the two, bringing that to a total payment amount of $686. Now, they estimated that I was going to have $4,938 in closing costs, but it included a $4,000 help from the lender for my closing costs. So the cash that I needed to close on this refinance was $688, which is perfect because it's about the amount of cash flow that I would have of 1 month payments from the renters with this new payment. We could go through the HUD of all the things, or the closing disclosure that I went through before with the hard money loan closing disclosure, but I think that you guys get the idea of what that looks like. One thing to keep in mind is just because the refinance lender or any lender is going to say your payment is going to be $688, there's going to be some fluctuations in those numbers. For example, when we actually closed, they estimated $688 would be my monthly payment. Sometimes taxes go up. Sometimes your insurance premium changes. So I'm looking at my loan, my actual first payment was $729.12. My total gross rental income was $1,200, $600 each when we first bought the property. After we put new leases in place, I could have easily taken them up to $800, $850. I didn't want to do that. They were awesome people and they were awesome renters while we had the property. So we raised them $100 up to $700 each, bringing in $1,400 total rental income, and my payment was $730. So we had about $670 of gross of our that came straight to us after the debt payment. And we estimated about $200 per month. It didn't usually come to that, but if you needed to replace a water heater or things like that, we leaned on the home warranty, and we also used something called HomeServe. HomeServe is a company that you can come and you can insure a specific water tank. You can insure a specific HVAC. You can insure different parts of the home. And that's what I had on the property just to cover all the bases. So that meant more cash flow was coming to me. And especially if something like a water heater goes out and it costs $800, well, that's going to cost you in terms of your yearly net cash flow. So we were bringing in $500 to $600 every single month straight to the business, which is about $250 to $300 per door. And I'd say that that was a great property as a second BRRRR property. Or actually, it was my first BRRRR property, my second multifamily property. And then about 6 months ago, we sold that property for $175,000, and we netted to the business around $68,000 when it was all said and done. And the reason that we did that was because of the return on equity. But we will save the conversation and discussion regarding return on equity for a later video. I think we've maxed this one out. We've talked about all the numbers, but stay tuned because again, I'm going to be dropping real estate strategy every Tuesday at 10 a.m. If this video served you or blessed you in any way, please like, comment, and of course, subscribe to support the channel because every Tuesday at 10 a.m. at a minimum, I'm going to be dropping real estate strategy, multifamily style, to help you in your business avoid the pitfalls that I fell into, and of course, gain from the successes that we have had. And I pray that God blesses you this week. And I do have a verse of the week, which is Hebrews 11:6. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. So ladies and gentlemen, join me as we seek our Heavenly Father, and that he rewards us for that, because when we get into his presence and we seek him first above all else, everything else falls into place. God bless you and God speed.